Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. Welcome all Jignasus for joining us for 128th workshop via YouTube and Facebook. I thank each one of you for joining us live. Even after 4,000 years, Mahabharata is still considered a great work ever produced in the world of spirituality, both in terms of its messaging and its volume. We have come across many Mahabharatas with several acharyas writing commentaries, poets having their own creative renditions, having seen and heard beautiful folk stories, natakas, yakshaganas, and the list just goes on. So, also, we've been exposed to B.R. Chopra's legendary Mahabharata on Doordarshan, to the current Mahabharatas that we see on channels and on OTT platforms. So, there are many Mahabharatas out there, but we haven't been able to arrive at one narrative which is true as it is, which is as per Vedavyasa. To be inspired, there are many Mahabharatas, but to know the truth, there is only one. And why is it so important to know the truth story? And what is the key takeaway from knowing the true story as it is? To know more, let's deep dive into our session through five intriguing questions from Mahabharata. So today's speaker of the day is Sunder Madakshira. So he's been currently working at Resolve as the CU and has been mentored by well-known scholars like Sri Prabhanjanacharya, Sri Srikantacharya Bhayari, and Sri Srinidhi Acharya. So I request all the viewers to check out our MFI YouTube page and try and consuming some of our thoughtful content that we put up. So try commenting and share accordingly. So I request all the viewers to actively participate as we chat. Please keep your questions handy. We also have a quiz module which is completely on pictures, which is a pictorial quiz that we have planned for. So please participate fully. Keep your questions handy, and it's a very interesting and engaging session. So let's bring in Sunder. Let's deep dive into this session.
Namaskara, Santosh.
Hi Sunder, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Good afternoon and welcome to all our viewers for this indeed most engaging session. Just by looking at the comments that we've been getting in the social media from the time that we have started talking about this particular topic, I can very safely say that this has generated a lot of interest. And which are those five intriguing questions and what are the answers that Mahabharata offers is an interesting topic indeed. Personally, for me, it has been a lovely time preparing for this and discussing each question and how what the relevance of it with you and our volunteer Prithvi has been a very enlightening experience by itself. So let's get into it straight away, Santosh.
Absolutely. I wanted to also mention that during the process, there's so much of learning that we had, Sunder. Got to know a lot of stories which Vedavyasura actually had given to us as it is, precisely know the story and some of the key takeaways. Sundar, I was just mentioning in my context setting that why it's so important to know a story as it is. What is that? Why is it so important to know?
Absolutely. I think that's a very good starting question itself by itself, Santosh. You know, the Mahabharata, Bhagavata, Ramayana, and all our Puranas were composed by Sri Vedavyasa, um, who is the incarnation of Lord Vishnu himself. Now, it's very obvious that while it has been presented in a very attractive style in the form of a story, the purpose for us, for him to share this, is not to tell a story. Because frankly, we don't need Lord Vedavyasa to come and tell us a story unless it has got an extremely higher level of purpose in our life. So these are spiritual stories. That's the first distinction that we have to make between stories in general and stories like Mahabharata and Ramayana, which have got a very, very special purport by itself. Mahabharata, as Sriman Madhvacharya says, that is equivalent to Panchama Veda. So, for anything to be considered in the Vedic zone itself is a very big thing by itself. It cannot be a set of story. Mahabharata cannot be all about two sets of cousins warring for, for a piece of land or for a woman for that matter. Or Ramayana cannot be a story of someone having kidnapped somebody's wife and the other person going in a pursuit. That's an excellent story for a web series, maybe, which we all can sit and binge watch. But if it is about the Puranas, it is they have got a different level of spiritual purport by it. So,
Right.
what has happened, as you rightly mentioned, is that each of these Puranas, and we'll stick to Mahabharata for now, and we'll talk about Ramayana later, is Mahabharata itself has gone through many. It has morphed by different people giving their own interpretations and commentaries and giving their own storyline itself. I think everything is fine. People can are fine to have their views on something, giving their perspectives about what they think should be the takeaway is also fine. But what is not fine is distorting the story itself. And during the course of today's session, we will see how the story itself has got distorted. Now, one will say, "Look, what do you mean by distortion? What is distortion? Your word is against someone else's word." Answer is no. Fortunately, today Mahabharata exists with all its 100,000, that is 1 lakh shlokas, exists today. It is not something which has gone away and we only have some remnants of it. We have the full text, and by God's grace, many people have translated that in English, Kannada, and so many other languages. For example, the Palimar Mutt Udupi has recently translated all 100,000 shlokas of Mahabharata into 37 volumes and released it recently. So those who have the patience and those who have the ability should can even today access all the 100,000 shlokas and interpret it. Now, the best part of Mahabharata is that it is written in a language that everybody can understand. And this Mahabharata, she Vedavyasa mentions it very clearly at the upfront. That means Mahabharata can be read by everyone because it's in the simpler language. But those of us who probably do not understand Sanskrit that well, there are very good translations available for that. Now, Mahabharata Tatpar Nirnaya by Madhvacharya is his magnum opus. With about 5,000 plus shlokas, it actually talks about how different characters, different aspects of the story, different events happened and why did they happen the way they were. And any doubts that we have about Mahabharata and its characters and its events are completely removed. So imagine, Santosh, just to sum up what I was trying to say, was the purpose of writing these Puranas was actually to give a larger spiritual lesson. If we do not understand the story correctly, if we do not understand the events correctly, then that story will be missed. The moral of the story will be missed because we are reading the wrong version. So, therefore, if we want to view Mahabharata as a story or we want to view it as a moral textbook or a playbook for our life, then one has to read the original and understand its events very accurately.
Right. Totally makes sense, Sundar. Thanks for setting up that. Uh, Moving on, could you just give a background to Mahabharata, as in who wrote this? And we all know that it was actually dictated to Ganesha. And when was it actually started? And some background to it, Sundar.
Yes, Mahabharata was written by Veda Vyasa. As is very clear, it is mentioned that he wrote it at a very young age, and he was Sri Veda Vyasa's purpose of writing it was to give the correct interpretation of our scriptures. What do the Vedas say? What do the Upanishads say? And how can that be understood better? Was the main purpose of Mahabharata. So Mahabharata is a Vedic text. It has its connections very closely with the Vedas and the way the Vedas are interpreted, which is through the Brahma Sutras. So it is to be viewed as a spiritual text. Now the other thing is that as I said, it runs into 18 chapters, and in all it totals up to 100,000 shlokas. That's 1 lakh shlokas, broken down into 18 different chapters. It was written by by Sri Vedavyasa, and who was very fortunate to be the scribe or the person who was taking it down while Sri Vedavyasa was dictating was none other than Lord Ganesha. As we know, Lord Ganesha is a person who bestows us knowledge as well as removes all the obstacles in the way. So Vedavyasa needed somebody who could not just write quickly, fast to match his speed, but also understand the Mahabharata as he writes it. And Ganesha was the right person to scribe it. It is written in Badrikashrama. It is said that what is famously called Vyasa Guha, and it is said that the river Saraswati used to pass by, and because it's a river, the flowing of the water used to create a kind of a sound. But and Vedavyasaru did not want that, that noise to be there, so he told Saraswati to go to flow without making that noise, and that is why it is said that the river Saraswati doesn't make that noise in Badrikashrama, but then it's a Guptagamini. That means just it's silent when Saraswati flows. So it is written there, and it starts with one story in another story, and that story in another story. So there is a story which is there, which is being narrated by somebody to another person, and that is narrated to another person. The interesting thing about Mahabharata is how it helps is it gives people or the person who is listening to the story enough opportunities to ask questions. And this is where the relevance of questions in our Shastra comes in, Santosh. If you just see this, every Shastra starts with a question somebody is asking and someone is answering it, right? You look at the Upanishads, you look at the Puranas, you look at any other story, even a small stotra like Vishnu Sahasranama stotra, which is a part of Mahabharata. It also starts with a question. So therefore, it's in a question and answer format. It gives ample opportunities for people to ask any type of question that they have, which is basically saying there are no holds barred. And questions are asked for many purposes. One is the person who's asking wants a clarification for himself. Sometimes he asks so that other people also who are listening to it also get the benefit, and they also get the understanding. So our workshop, which is titled Five Intriguing Questions about Mahabharata, is not out of place. Mahabharata itself is full of thousands of questions and thousands of answers given by everyone. And also, I think from the point of view of a reader, it makes it easier to follow a flow when it's broken down in the form of in the form of a story. It is told in the form of a story, but it is also broken down in the form of question and answers. So it becomes very modular for us to read and retain in our mind. So that's the structure of Mahabharata as it exists today. Because many people have written their own versions. I'm talking about the Mahabharata written by the original author Vedavyasa. In the Madhva tradition, Mahabharata Tatparya and Yamaka Bharata are two granthas written by Sri Madhvacharya, and it has been commentaries have been written on these granthas as well. So, for example, Sri Vadaraja Tirtharu has written a commentary called Lakshalankara, Mahabharata Tatparya Lakshalankara, which is again an expression and giving a meaning to a lot of what Mahabharata has, what Srimad Madhvacharya has written. Thakurnirni itself finds very elaborate quotations in many other parts of the scriptural works in the Dvaita world. Now, it is not to say that only the Dvaita world has taken cognizance. Virtually everyone who is a serious commentator in India has taken Mahabharata as a critical grantha. The level of criticality might differ, but the fact is everybody considers Mahabharata as its epitome of spiritual knowledge. Now, Mahabharata also encloses two very critical things. Everything in Mahabharata is equally important, but some two things which are the essence of Mahabharata. One is the Bhagavad Gita, as we know. So, whenever you think about the Sanatana Dharma or what we know as Hinduism today, the moment you talk about it, the first thing which comes is the Bhagavad Gita as a text. And the other one is Vishnu Sahasranama, which is again a chanting of 1008 names of Lord Vishnu. Both of them are treated as the essence of Mahabharata. So there is something there. Maybe in another workshop, some other time, we will see how these are actually the spiritual essence of Mahabharata itself. But that roughly sums up what Mahabharata is all about, Santosh.
Thanks, Sundar. Thanks for setting that up, like giving us a background to Mahabharata. And it's so important that our Shastras, lends itself to asking more questions. So while we see, people don't encourage for more questions, but our Shastras, lends itself to ask more questions so that more get more clarity. Right. Sundar, you were saying that Mahabharata is also Panchama Veda, and the kind of our ancestor has given so much of prominence to this Grantha. Uh, so I'm going to the first question, which is the first intriguing question to Mahabharata. Before that, we all know that about this amazing character of Dharmaraja, who has Dharma Pragna, who is always, he always is abided by certain dharma, and his character is full of dharma. And but we see there's a very contradicting thing of Dharmaraja, that why did he even play this game of dice? Similarly with Yudhishthira as well. So could you just touch upon our first intriguing question, why did even Dharmaraja get into this game of dice? He could have just said no and gone off, and the entire Mahabharata could have been avoided. I'm so may say so, but why is
Yes,
this?
absolutely. I think, Santosh, you have asked a very pertinent question, right? Yudhishthira is called Dharmaraja, right? By definition, that's a post, that's an adjective. Dharma, Yudhishthira is his name, Dharmaraja is the adjective given because of his qualities. Now, if he symbolizes Dharma, why did he even go to play the game of dice? I keep thinking about it. Somebody, let us say somebody comes and says, last night I went to a pub and I didn't drink at all. I was just standing there. And suddenly two people started fighting there because they were all drunk. And I didn't mean to join it all, but somehow I started. Somebody hit me. I couldn't stand myself. I hit him back. Again, it was not my fault. I promise you, I was not drinking. The first question that anybody will ask him is, "Why the hell were you going? What were you doing in a pub? Why the hell did you go in the first place?" Right. So that's a question about Yudhishthira. Why did he go and play the game of dice? It's a very intriguing question, right? So there are many reasons for it, and there is one central reason. For that, we have to look at what is his background, and what happened in the background. So we all know the Pandavas and the Kauravas were actually, were actually people who were trained under the aegis of Dronacharya. So Dronacharya actually came forward, and he was their guru. Now, after their completion of their studies, Dronacharya had actually mandated and called each one of them and said, "Look, each one of you needs to take a vow, which you will always stand by, right? Something that's worthwhile." Now, if you are able to live up to the vow, then it's great. But if you do not live up to the vow, whatever vidya or the knowledge which I have given you actually will go away from you, right? So this is a vow. It's like a pledge during convocation, which you do secretly. You should not tell anyone, but you should be able to stand by that at all times. Now, Bhima, being Bhima, says that anybody who insults Krishna, I will not spare him. I'm going to kill him. So, and he displays that, as we know, in the game of dice later, when Duryodhana says, "Why don't you offer him as a bet, Lord Krishna as bet?" That is when he actually gets angry and tells him that he's going to kill him one day. So, similarly, Arjuna, what Arjuna says is that this bow which I have, the Gandiva, the very famous Gandiva Dhanush, is something that has been given to me. It has come to me from Lord Brahma himself. So therefore, anyone, it's not mine. It's been given as I've sort of given to me for some time, and after I've used it, I have to return it. But it's a very precious thing for me. Now, if anybody insults the Gandiva, then I am going to kill that person. And Karna does that, and that is why Arjuna vows to kill him as well. But these are in secret. You're not supposed to tell anybody. So this is what Bhima said, and this is what Arjuna said. But then what happened to Yudhishthira? Yudhishthira was not a person who was as strong as Arjuna and Bhima. So what he did was he took a vow. He said, "Look, let me take a vow which will take me to a situation which I'm never likely to face. Let me do something which is never going to happen in my life. Like Arjuna said, if somebody insults Gandiva, I'm going to kill him. So why don't I say something which is never going to happen? There is a chance when Arjuna said that if somebody insults the Gandiva, he's going to kill him. The chances are that somebody is going to insult Gandiva. That possibility exists. Similarly, there is a possibility that somebody insults Krishna, in which case Bhima will have to kill that person, whoever that person is. Now, in the case of Yudhishthira, unfortunately, he's not as strong as the two of his younger brothers. So he takes a vow with a trick. He says, look, tomorrow I'm going to be a Chakravarti. I'm going to be a Chakravarti. I'm going to be a king. And in that situation, what is never going to happen? It is never going to happen is, well, what is never going to happen in my case is somebody invites me for a game of dice. Why? Because only nobody can invite a king for a game of dice. A king can call anybody for a game of dice. Now, here it's not just the king, he's the Chakravarti. That means the king of kings. So there exists no possibility whatsoever that somebody invites Yudhishthira, sorry, for a game of dice. So he vows that if somebody were to call me for a game of dice, which he thought was a near impossibility or impossible, he will not refuse it. Right? That's a vow, which is a secret vow. So when he gets the invitation from Dhritarashtra, he never questions it. He goes straight into it and says yes, because he is already bound to do this because of his own vow. Now, there is a mistake which Yudhishthira makes in the process, which is that when he gets the invitation, he does not consult his brothers or Draupadi, which he should have. Why should he have done it? Because everyone knows the history that when he was invited to the game of dice, the Kauravas were extremely jealous of him. They had tried to, they were not willing to give him the kingdom itself. Then very reluctantly, half the kingdom was given. What was given was a barren land, and what they built, the Pandavas built, was by their own dint of hard work under the guidance of Krishna. So they built a beautiful city, a beautiful kingdom, and they had just completed the inauguration of that. And at that time, Duryodhana and his brothers, along with Shakuni and Karna, had actually visited that place, seen the place, and gone back with a lot of jealousy. So, in a situation when you are likely to have a negative impact of a certain event, you have to be more careful. So when Yudhishthira got the invitation, instead of jumping at it, he should have consulted his brothers, who were all his well wishers, obviously, and they would have cautioned that look, there seems to be something wrong. Why is it the Kauravas, who always hated us, suddenly want us to join them for a picnic and play this game of dice? Isn't it obvious? So that is why he played the game of dice. He shouldn't have played it, but behind that is a vow that he himself has taken to so safeguard his own knowledge that he had got from Dronacharya. He was helpless in that situation. So yes, there might have been a few incidents where Yudhishthira has not lived up to dharma completely, but he is still Dharmaraja. Why? Because in a life where he has been challenged by his cousins, by his uncle, and by several other people several times, he has never forsaken the path of dharma. His the certificate that he is a Dharmaraja comes to him from none other than the most evil guy, who is Shakuni. He says that whatever happens in a conversation, he says, whatever happens, the Pandavas will never give up their path of dharma. So the main takeaway for us from this story is each of our actions have certain consequences. We are not aware sometimes that even small things that we do, a small word that we say, a small action that we take can lead to consequences which we are not prepared for. Yes, at the face of it, it looked like a very innocent game of dice between two cousins. So after all, what is wrong? But look at what happened, right? So when we say, okay, let me do this one time, I won't do it again, just let me do it one time, we do not know what the consequences of that are going to be. So that is why Santosh, Yudhishthira, who is called Dharmaraja, actually had to play the game of dice because he did some. It is still wrong. The game of dice is wrong, and we all know the story of the consequences one had to bear because of this game of dice.
Right, Sundar. Uh, like, was there no incident that he could avoid this, Sundar? Because that was such a concealing situation for him. Like as you told, he could have avoided by consulting Draupadi as well, or Bhima, in fact, so that famous characters. But
Yes.
I mean, yeah, I think we could call it as Daiva Vidhi, and
See, one way to look at it is this is a grand design by the Lord Almighty Himself. This had to happen because I think somewhere there, the evil nature of the Kauravas was all waiting to explode in some way or the other. So what happened became a very clear, it held a mirror to the Kauravas' evil behavior, right? Otherwise, it is so surprising, Santosh, that despite all this thing about reading about Mahabharata, today there seem to be a lot of supporters for Duryodhana and his clan, which is coming as a surprise. Everybody supports, anybody can support Duryodhana on whatever he did, but nobody will ever support him for what he did with Draupadi Devi, which is what we're going to discuss sometime as we go
sure,
along. But clearly, the game of dice brought one of the fallouts was clearly that establishing that Kauravas were not just evil; they were very evil, and there was no place for dharma in their lives because I think they crossed every single limit which was set in for a righteous behavior. So there is a question which is coming from Rashmi Raj, which says that could Yudhishthira have refused? Yes, he could have refused. He could have taken a vow, but the best way to answer your question as well, Santosh, he could have walked up to Dronacharya and sought forgiveness and said, "Look, this is putting me in a situation where I'm supposed to do adharma, right? I keep telling this. Let us say you and I decide, to loot a bank near my house. And you promise me that Sundar, I will come there at 1 a.m. in the morning and let's loot a bank. That is also a promise. That's also a vow, no doubt about it. But when you go there, suppose you don't show up at 1 a.m., can I file a case against you? Can I hold it against you? Who will be called adharmi? You or me, right? It will be me because it is not cheating. A thief is not at all, is not considered an act of cheating, right? So therefore, it might have meant. So that is why dharma has got different levels. There is a higher level dharma, which is what is good for the sajjanas or the right people is dharma. That is the definition of dharma. And
right,
wherever whatever Krishna says is dharma. Why? Vishnu Sahasranama is clear. Dharma krit dharmi. He is dharma. So whatever is right, we don't, Yudhishthira doesn't need lessons from us on what is dharma because he is still the Dharma Raja. But definitely making the choice and acting accordingly was wrong.
right,
So, and it led to very undesirable consequences.
right. So that this anecdote also reminds me of that even if you are actually walking in the path of dharma, you might be facing such situation where you might not be knowing whether this is dharma or not. And it's always better to sort of consult who knows what is dharma better, take their suggestions and move forward.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right. Thanks. Sudha. So moving on to the second intriguing question, we all have this very confusing or like very interesting question that how did Draupadi marry five men? I mean, one plus is something which we don't approve of, and how come five?
Yeah. So that's a very interesting and very intriguing part of Draupadi herself. Her very character is something which presents us with a lot of questions. But again, unfortunately, the character of Draupadi again has got distorted in the modern way or in the way people are presenting it. Draupadi Devi, as we know her, there's a history to her, to the way she was born. So I will not go in detail into that story because it's a long story, and I will shorten it. So Brahma, Lord Brahma was once sitting on a tapas at a place, and at that time, four different goddesses were passing by, and they said, okay, let us test Lord Brahma as to how intelligent it is. Now, first of all, that's a wrong thing to do, because when he's Lord Brahma, he's Sarvagna, so he knows everything. So one should not test people who of that stature. But the four goddesses got together and said, look, let us all come into one single body, and then we will test whether Lord Brahma can make out whether four of us are there or not. And they do that. They pass by Lord Brahma. Lord Brahma sees them, sees this one body, and he's able to make out that there are four goddesses in it. Why? He is Sarvagna. But then, and on top, he's called Chaturmukha. So he's got four heads, which means he has got multiple perspectives when he's looking at something like this. So what he does is that he ignores it. He doesn't react. The goddesses then get intrigued. So maybe he could not make out that there are four people. So all four of them come out, take separate bodies and again start working in front of him to show that, look, all four of us were actually inside the same body. Again, Lord Brahma ignores it. The third step, they actually call in their husbands and start walking around with those husbands. Again, Lord Brahma ignores it. But the last thing, there is like a public display of affection that they show with their husbands, and start to romance them, which is not acceptable, because romancing us between a husband and wife is there's nothing wrong, but doing it in public is not acceptable in the most intriguing cultures in the world as well. So what he did, Lord Brahma quickly curses them, saying that since you try to do this, you try to do two things. All of you wanted to be in the same body. Second, you wanted to romance your husband. So may all of you be born in a body and at the same time have the samparka or the connection with a parapurusha or another man, a man who's not your husband, which is a very serious damage to their purity. The goddesses immediately realize their mistake and seek pardon. So at that time, Brahma actually uh, gives them a vow, gives them a boon, saying that you can overcome this if you find a way out. Which is why the four goddesses then pray to Lord Bharati, who is the wife of Lord Vayu, saying that we all will come into your body, and then since your husband is none other than Shri Vayu, who is our father. So if a father touches a daughter, it's not considered inappropriate. So Parapurusha Sparsha has happened, but again, it does not touch their purity. So thinking that, they pray to goddess Bharati with all her kindness, blesses them, and that is why Draupadi was born. So Draupadi, while when she was born itself, it she had five different bodies encapsulated in her body. Now, one may say, oh my God, what is this? I can't believe all this. Yes, it is something which has got to do with the gods. So if you can't understand it, it's fine. But to say that such a thing did not happen is wrong, because it has got clearly a mention in Mahabharata itself. So when Draupadi was born, she was born in the fire, as we all know. At that time, Drupada, who was her father, actually had performed this great Homa, where he actually said that I want to beget a son who's got the valor to kill Dronacharya. Why? Because Dronacharya and he had become rivals and they fought each other. And I want to have Draupadi as a daughter who then will marry Arjuna, because Arjuna would have vanquished Drupada and he's very impressed. He said, such a person should become my son in law, but he doesn't have a daughter at that time. So he performs this Homa, and it is very important to note that both Drishtadyumna, who is Draupadi's brother, and Draupadi were not born as babies. They were born as people who were around 20 years of age. So that explains why the Pandavas, who were aged 30, 29, 28, and 27 respectively, from Yudhishthira to Nakula Sahadeva, were of that age, and Draupadi was at that time 20 years of age. So for those of us who are wondering how could Draupadi be born and her age would be like zero, and Yudhishthira and his brothers would be in their late 20s and 30, how can that happen? So this is the answer to that. And Santosh, I must say, how beautifully Mahabharata has chronicled all these things. So one reads the original Mahabharata, he will come to know what ages they were. So Draupadi, why did she marry five people? Is the fact that there were five different goddesses who were there, and they all married their respective husbands, right? And that is how the marriage actually happened. Yes, we all know the story that there was a Swayamvara, which was in place. Draupadi, everybody, all the kings came together to fight and win the hand of win Draupadi and marry her. Nobody succeeded. Finally, Arjuna came in and did the Matsya Veda Yantra. I, again, for positive time, it's a very interesting story, but I'm holding my horses in the interest of time. And Arjuna actually married and took Draupadi along with her brothers back to Kunti, who was then working in a hut. And they asked her that, we got something today. What do we do with it? And Kunti said, look, whatever you've got, distribute it equally amongst all of you, or all of you can together have it. Immediately, and she turned back to just to see Draupadi at that time. Now, it's a misnomer that because Kunti said that, this whole thing had happened and became a compulsion. That's not true. Kunti Pandavas were extremely righteous people. They were not people who were going to stay by that. They could have Kunti could have just apologized, saying, "Oh my God, I didn't know. I had said something." Kunti's words are not Vedavakya. The whole story is preordained that this would be the way it will happen. You may say, how did you know that? That is because Drupada, who is Draupadi's father, had taken this vow. He had gotten Draupadi as his daughter only so that she marries Arjuna, and as well as the whole story unfolds like this. Going one step before, all this story about Brahma, etc., is already written in the Mahabharata much before this stage even came. It finds its mention in other Puranas as well. So the story was already written. This was just the enactment of that story. And therefore, and this is the clinching evidence, as they say. Drupada is not happy with this. He's saying, my daughter cannot marry five men. And what will happen to her? So then, when Vedavyasa himself says that, look, there are five goddesses inside this, he's Drupada is sort of inclined to believe it, but not fully so. So at that time, Vedavyasa, in his characteristic style, bestows him with the Divya Drishti. He says, look, I'll give you scanning abilities for you to see, to be able to divine scanning, perform the scanning of Draupadi. You will come to know that there are five different goddesses who are residing in a body. He gives that strength gives that power to Drupada, and then Drupada sees Draupadi and he makes out that yes, indeed, there are five goddesses. He for sure knows that his daughter is no ordinary woman. Draupadi's role in Mahabharata is very, very central. She she plays this role of someone who establishes dharma. She is the one who causes the killing of Kichaka. She is the one who begets the Upapandavas. And throughout the flow of the Mahabharata story, she is the one, along with Bhima and the other Arjuna, who are actually the pillars of righteousness that happen in the entire Mahabharata Purana. So her role is very, very critical, and that is why she is actually someone who's, who marries five men. So it is not one Draupadi marrying five people; it's five goddesses marrying five gods in that place. So that's the story of why Draupadi married five men.
Right, Sunder. Thanks for giving that background to why she married like five. Uh, but if I want to like, is there any a narrative to, because like sometimes it is said so that why should I believe that, because there's something which is there inside her, that is five devatas. Is there an easier way to, so that I can understand that apart from this avesha kind of structure, is there any other way why it was understood that Vedavasaru also sort of guided her, that she can marry five people? Is there any such story to it, or apart from this Avesha example, is there
Yes.
any other simpler way to understand why it was a dharma, it was a right thing to do?
Yeah, I think we have lost Santosh's connection. Just wait for a few minutes. So, to answer Santosh's questions, the answer is no. Clearly, this is the most convincing narrative which Mahabharata itself gives. Now, Mahabharata as a story, as a scriptural, as a Purana, is full of such intrigues. There are many many reasons why such happen. It's full of shapas. It is full of boons, which all come and act at a given time, and therefore the best way to understand why this happened was indeed the righteousness of the Pandavas, and the fact that Draupadi was in fact a manifestation or culmination of five different goddesses that this happened. So we will wait for Santosh to join, but we can clearly jump into the next question that we had, that is there, which is who is the real hero in Mahabharata, right? So Santosh, we've just we lost you for a few seconds, so I've answered that question, and now we're moving to the next question, which is, who is the real hero of Mahabharata, right? Again, it's again a contentious question because of the popular narrative. So if you ask anyone who is the hero, of course they say, it has to be Krishna, which is, there is no doubt about it. The number one hero of Mahabharata is none other than Lord Krishna himself. But the other thing which we need to remember is, who is the next hero? Who is the person next to whose role is most critical? And if you look at it, again, the popular answer that will come is, it must be Arjuna, because Arjuna is the valier. He's the archer par excellence, and he's the one who's probably closest to Krishna, and uh, who's made a stellar role in the Mahabharata. There is absolutely no doubt in the fact that Arjuna's valor, Arjuna's ability, Arjuna's knowledge, and the role that he played before the war and during the war and after the war are unparalleled. It is also not, there is no doubt that he was indeed one of Krishna's best friend, what we call as Sakha. He was always a Sakha to Lord Krishna, and that is no small achievement by itself. Imagine being Lord Sri Krishna's, as we call, the best friend. But if you really go deeper into what happened in Mahabharata, the original Mahabharata, we see that, and unfortunately I think a lot of television narratives have also come in the similar way, that it seems that Arjuna is more critical and Bhima doesn't have any role. He seems to be someone who's well built, a man of brute strength, who would just throw everything at people, and just by sheer weight he would kill people, and not to be taken too seriously. It's really Arjuna who matters, but that nothing could be further from truth. And this Mahabharata itself says about how important the role of Bhima was. Bhima Sena killed all the 100 people, all the 100 Kauravas, the brothers, all 100 were killed by Bhima. Before this, Jarasandha was absolutely, impregnable in terms of his fortress, and who was almost considered immortal till then, was killed by Bhima. Bhima also killed Kichaka. And why is Kichaka important? Because in the hierarchy of strength, Kichaka ranks very, very high. So it's Lord Bhima, Bhimasena, Lord Balarama, Shalya, followed by Kichaka. Imagine, he was so strong. And even during the war, if you see, what Bhima does was that all the other prominent warriors of the Mahabharata war, be it Bhishma, Drona, Karna, Ashwathama, and many others, he catches them live many times in the war and lets them go, because there is a Mahabharata war, unfortunately, is not just a war. There are so many vows, there are so many shapas, there are so many punya, lot of things are playing into that time. So it's ordained that Arjuna kills Karna. Arjuna, Shikhandi will be the reason for Bhishmacharya's death, and so on and so forth. So all those reasons also have to be met. So that is why, despite being the stronger of the two, Bhima always lets go of many opportunities where he could have killed these other warriors. Now, one may say, oh my God, all this is cock and bull story. We don't believe in that. Let us go to one single line of Bhagavad Gita, which is a giveaway. The best person to actually size up everyone in a war are the people of the enemy side. Right? The enemy is best placed to understand who is the stronger person. And what does Duryodhana say in the Bhagavad Gita shloka, aparyaptam tadametesham balam bhishma. Our fort, our army, which is guarded by Bhishma, is aparyaptam. But on the other side, it is balam bhima birakshatum paryaptam. That means they look stronger. Why? Because they are guarded by Bhima. This has come from none other than Duryodhana, who at that time, before the start of the war, he's doing that final analysis about who is the stronger one. So I think it's very clear that the hero of the Mahabharata war after Lord Krishna is Bhimasena himself. If you look at the other stories in Mahabharata, again, when the Lakshagriha is burning and they had to run, all the Pandavas had to run. Imagine Bhima picks up everybody on their on his shoulders, all the Pandavas and Kunti together, and runs all night to take them away into a area of safety. He is the one who also kills Hidamba. He is the one who kills Kichaka. He is the one, as we said, kills Jarasandha. So there is no doubt that the man who kills the villain, our guru Dr. Prapanjanacharya always says, who is the hero? The one who kills the villain is the hero. That we know by looking at a lot of Bollywood and Hollywood movies. So the person who kills the villain of Mahabharata, which is Duryodhana, is none other than Bhima. And not only that, the Bhima's role, even in educating people, is very high. So one would imagine, oh, you see this Bhagavad Gita. Why did Arjuna feel weak? Why did Yudhishthira feel weak? We get that doubt. Yudhishthira should have felt weak, a little weak when he saw his elders and all of that and backed out. He doesn't do it. Arjuna does it. So we wonder, where did Yudhishthira actually get that strength to fight the war? He gets that strength from none other than Bhimasena himself. Because when in the woods, when they are actually in the forest, in the Vanamasa, that is when Bhima and Draupadi together are actually sitting and educating Yudhishthira about why he should fight the war and he should not back out, come what may, when the topic of war will come up, because they are very sure that the Kauravas will not give up that kingdom that easily. So there is no doubt that Bhima is indeed the hero of the Mahabharata war, Santosh.
Thanks, Sunder. So moving on, Bhima is also considered to be. I mean, like, yeah, as you were telling me that we come across someone who eats more, who's just brutal force, and it is such a turnaround to the entire story that Bhima is actually the base of this entire Mahabharata, and it is so wonderfully put across that. And how we come across only it is Arjuna that who comes into the limelight and not Bhima, right? And thanks for highlighting that, Sundar.
Santosh,
Maybe
just one point. When you look at the whole story of Mahabharata, if there are two people who never ever question Lord Krishna, there are only two people. One is Draupadi, the other one is Bhima. And
right.
Bhima and Draupadi in that order. Never has he ever questioned Lord Krishna. And never has he veered away from that path of Dharma. Not once can you see Bhima doing something which is against the concept of Dharma. Everyone, Yudhishthira, Arjuna, Nakula, Sahdeva, even great gods like Lord Shiva, who is incarnated as Ashwatthama Bhishmacharya, Dronacharya, Kripacharya, everyone seems to have slipped in some occasion or the other. But the person who is unassailable when it comes to his pursuit of dharma is Bhima. And one can take it as a study and go through Mahabharata fully and point out one place where he has deviated from the path of dharma.
Correct.
So
And
that's a very important point.
sometimes I keep thinking, why didn't Krishna, preach Bhagavad Gita to Bhima and not Arjuna? So I think this narrative clearly makes it clear that he's full of knowledge and he has no confusions at all, right?
Yes, he didn't get those questions, right? The
Right.
thing is that in the pond in the, amongst the Pandavas, Arjuna and Bhima are the leading warriors in the war, as far as the war is concerned. So, if they wanted to fortify someone, it will be someone who is the weaker of the two, right? Who
Right.
needs tuition lessons? The student who is slightly weak in some subject. He may be good. Arjuna is a great warrior, no doubt. He is fully equipped for the war. He has prepared one weapon for each of those people whom he has to kill, and he executes it to perfection. But at each stage, if you see the Mahabharata war, he has to be coaxed by Arjuna. Imagine after listening to all the Bhagavad Gita, for the first 5 days, Bhishmacharya runs amok and Arjuna doesn't counter him at all. He has to be reminded by Krishna again that look, he's running amok. You have to curtail him and you have to kill him because Arjuna is actually appreciating Bhishma. Every time Bhishma would, fire a weapon, Arjuna will say, "Oh my God, look at my great grandfather. Look at him. How even at this age, at the age of 800 years, he's still fighting such a valiant war." Then Krishna has to bring him back every time. And even while killing Bhishma and Drona and Karna, he has to be coached and coaxed to do it. But that's not the case with Bhima. Once it has been decided the war is going to be fought, that's it. Bhima goes in all out and stops only at the end of the 18th day when he has killed Duryodhana and walks out as though nothing has happened. He's done his dharma. That's it.
Right. Yeah. Thanks, Sundar. Moving on, Sundar, I have another question wherein that always did Kaurava, did Pandava had any other way that they have any had a very devious method to sort of conduct this entire war? Because uh, I mean there was a statement made Ashwattamo Hataha, and then killing of Bhishmacharya, Karna, and Duryodhana, uh, wherein like when Krishna actually sits on the chariot and he looks like a very smart chap who sort of deviates this entire with his master plan, without abiding dharma. That's how it actually looks like when you actually look at the entire plot. That's how Krishna looks like, and all the five Pandavas actually following him. That's how it seems like. I mean, the underlining dharma is not so evident. So, did Pandavas follow any devious method to sort of curtail Kauravas?
Yeah, I think this is also a very frequently asked question, which is that, um, did the Pandavas actually kill the Kauravas using devious method? I think this question comes, Santosh, only when you do not know the background of why and how these people were killed. Now, let's start with Bhishmacharya, who was out of the 18 days of the war, 10 days were the time when he is the commander in chief of the Kaurava army. So when he actually, and we all know how he was killed. So when he was fighting the war, Shikhandi, who is the eunuch, who actually comes in between him and Arjuna, seeing the eunuch, seeing her, he actually drops the arms and then Arjuna kills him. This is the story. But many people don't know what happens before the war started. And this is there quoted directly in Mahabharata using several shlokas. So before the war starts, Yudhishthira actually goes up to Bhishmacharya and tells him that, "Oh Bhishmacharya, we are not in the mood to kill you. But we have to win this war. This is not a personal war. This is a dharma yuddha. And you are coming between us achieving the dharma, or you're coming in the way of the world achieving dharma. So we have to kill you, and we will kill you. And you know that we are capable of killing you, right? So in this circumstance, right, tell us, how would you like us to kill you? Imagine you are going and asking somebody, how can we kill you? And at that time, Bhishma says, you know what? I am a person who has lived, 800 years. 525 out of those years I spent in the Swargaloka, studying under the great masters over there. And when I was born, I have given a vow that I will never marry. Ajanma brahmacharya. I have managed all my life. At the same time, I have also given a promise that whoever comes in this throne, I will support them. And not only that, Bhishmacharya's character is extremely great, because in the famous Rajasuya Yaga, just when there was a time to do Agra Puja, or who is the person who had to be prayed to first, and the Pandavas ask Bhishmacharya, and Bhishmacharya says it should be Lord Krishna who is eligible for Agra Puja, or the first person to be offered prayers to. So by stating that one line, he actually gives the world the message of the entire scriptures, which is that Hari is Sarvottama. Lord Hari, who is incarnated as Sri Krishna, is the supreme, and he has to be prayed to not only in this occasion but on every occasion. So with one word, he has given us the essence of the entire scriptures. Not only this, after the war, he performs a great duty of actually reciting the Vishnu Sahasranama and ensuring that the Vishnu Sahasranama comes and becomes a popular stotra across the world. He also gives Dharma Bodhana, or he teaches Dharma to whom? To Yudhishthira. So imagine teaching Dharma to Dharmaraja himself. That is why many of us must be wondering, why do we call Bhishmacharya as Acharya? Isn't he a Kshatriya? How can he be called an Acharya? He's called an Acharya because he taught Dharma to the embodiment of Dharma, Dharmaraja, or Yudhishthira himself. That is why he's given a special title of Bhishmacharya. He says, look, I am a person of this stature and I'm 800 years old. I wouldn't, and very importantly, I missed selling this. He is the student of Sri Parashurama himself. So he is a student of Lord Vishnu himself. So how can he be killed in a very ignominious manner? So what he says is, do not kill me when I'm holding my weapons. So don't kill me when I'm holding my weapons. So Yudhishthira's next question is, when will you drop your weapons? He says, when Shikhandi actually comes between, or he comes between me and anybody else, then I'm going to give up my weapons. That time I'm going to kill. So what will happen therefore is that it will be recorded that Bhishma actually got killed when he did not have weapon, giving him the benefit of the doubt that maybe if he had his weapon, he could have still not, he was not to be killed, which is not a fact, because Arjuna and Bhima are two warriors who could have killed Bhishma at any time. Now we can say, where is this said? The whole Virata Parva had happened just before the war, and at that time, what happens? One single Arjuna, one single Arjuna counters the entire Kaurava army, and he defeats them. So imagine, as one individual, he's defeated them a few days before the Mahabharata war itself. So he has proven that he himself is good enough. And also, if you observe, before the Mahabharata war, Bhishma says, I will try to kill as many people as possible amongst the Pandavas, but I will not kill Arjuna and Bhima because he cannot kill them. That is the reason. That's why he's making it very clear to Duryodhana that there are certain things I can't do because I don't have the power. But rest of the power, I'm going to give it my best and do what I can do. And he lives up to that. He's a great warrior, but again, he's on the wrong side. So therefore, in the war, Shikhandi comes in between. Bhishma actually drops his weapon, and Arjuna kills him. So it is a method of killing which Bhishma had talked about himself. He had told the Pandavas that this is how I would like you to kill me. So there is absolutely nothing wrong, because this was a method ordained by Bhishma himself. In the process, yes, there may be questions about Pandavas but Pandavas are actually okay to take that blame on themselves at the cost of saving Bhishma's honor, of having got killed. If he had been killed with the bow, it would have been, maybe, there was some problem with his brahmacharya or something like that. That's why he got killed. So that Bhishma does not get that blame, the Pandavas had to do this. Similarly, with Dronacharya again, Dronacharya is their guru. So they walk up to Dronacharya and ask him the same question, and he gives them the same answer. He is also Parashurama Shishya, his disciple, as well as he's someone who is taught the Pandavas and the Kauravas. So he's their guru. So I cannot be killed in that manner. He's also 600 years old, a man of extremely high virtues, but on the wrong side. And Dronacharya knows that he's on the wrong side. He says, okay, if somebody tells me something which is unpleasant, extremely unpleasant, then I will give up my arms and then you can kill me. So Yudhishthira asks him, okay, what is that extremely unpleasant news that you would not like to hear? He says, look, I'm not going to tell you that, you can make a guess. So that is why during the war, the news is fed that Ashwathamo Hataha, that means Ashwathama is dead, right? And then they sort of gouge it in the form of Atak Kunjara because Yudhishthira is not willing to tell that lie, even at that time. So therefore, he drops his weapon, and then Drishtadyumna, who is again born to kill him, actually beheads him as well. So that's how Dronacharya is killed. Again, it is to save Dronacharya's honor that the Mahabharata clearly says the Pandavas had to take this view. Otherwise, killing Dronacharya was not something that was impossible for Bhima or for Arjuna. Both of them had the capability to do that. Plus, they had the Drishtadyumna who was born to kill Dronacharya himself, gifted by the god. Similarly, Karna at that time gets off his chariot, and at that time, Arjuna fires the arrow and kills him. We have to remember that by this time in the war, the Kauravas have violated every single rule that is available at the war. They are the people who have killed the young Abhimanyu in the most merciless way. And Arjuna is very well aware of that. And this is what Krishna reminds him that look, this is how they have killed you, killed this person. So there is nothing wrong in killing Karna when he is on the ground. He has a Guru Shapa. He's been cursed by his Guru, again, Lord Parashurama, that he will forget those things when he is in the mood to actually compete with someone. The Vidya which has been given by Parashurama is to fight a Dharma Yuddha. If Karna was fighting a Dharma Yuddha, his knowledge would have been intact. But he gets into that competition mode, and just to show his one-upmanship with Arjuna, he starts fighting, which is when he loses that. He forgets all the stuff that he had learned, and when he needs it most, and then goes down to pull the chariot which is stuck in the mud, and then Arjuna kills him. Even now, it is not adharma because the rules have to be followed when the other party follows the rules. The Kauravas have violated this again and again and again. Even the whole concept of Ratri Yuddha was started again by Kauravas, who suddenly decide that they're going to fight all night. That is not something that is agreed as a reason as the purpose of the war. So therefore, it was not adharma to kill a person who himself has chosen the wrong method to actually fight a war. For example, look at the police people. They're always supposed to be in a uniform. But the CID, they don't wear a uniform. They go and arrest people. They have to catch somebody because if they wear a uniform and go with the siren on, the thief will run away. Do we call it anyaya that that person actually caught the thief in a wrong manner by wearing plain clothes? Definitely not. If somebody has performed a dharma, everybody else has a right to catch that person using a method which may not be as per the prescription. For example, spying for one's country, it is dharma. Those people are called martyrs, right? So that's how they kill Karna. And lastly, very importantly, is the killing of Duryodhana himself. Again, something which has been thrown up to controversy because Duryodhana seems to have a lot of people who support him even now after all this, which is very, very intriguing for us. Duryodhana was killed by Bhima taking the Gada and hitting him at his thighs. So one, as per the Gada Yuddha rules, one is not supposed to hit below the belt or below the waist. But if one reads the Mahabharata and reads it carefully, what Duryodhana does At that point in time is just when Bhima is about to hit him, Duryodhana turns catapult or a summer. He does a somersault. So when he is hitting him, it's actually Bhima aims above the waist, but it is Duryodhana who actually does a somersault, and his thighs, therefore, which ultimately bear the brunt of the blow, are above the waistline. So it is not adharma at all. Yes, Bhima has vowed that he will break his thighs, but at that time the thighs were above the waistline because he's done a somersault. If you read the Mahabharata Tatparya Nirnaya, it is very, very clear that this is how Duryodhana was killed. So yes, Bhima killed him, but not using the methodology. So I think, it was an eye opener for me about 25 years back when I heard this narration about Mahabharata Tatparya. I read that, and I also read the original Mahabharata with these excerpts, and actually understood how these deaths have happened, and my complete approach towards understanding Mahabharata has changed, because we are so used to the popular narrative, while the television serials have done a great job in terms of popularizing Mahabharata and Ramayana. Unfortunately, because of the narrative, because of their own poetic interpretation, a lot of things have not been shown as accurately as they should be. We have said that these are textbooks, these are playbooks. We cannot, these, unfortunately, there's not a poetry, there's not a filmmaking. These are dharma granthas. Reading them as stories is doing gross injustice to the gravitas and the weight of these granthas. So if these are dharma granthas, we have to read the original, read the Mahabharata Tatparya, which interprets Mahabharata. That's very, very important.
Right. Thanks, Sundar. Like Tatparana gives us so much of clarity into what was the dharma upheld by all the Pandavas. While we hear different narratives, but Madhvacharya's Tatparana gives a clear, absolute narrative and sort of solves all the doubts that we have. While this makes absolute sense, and then Pandavas never killed using devious methods uh, during the war. The next question is the role of Krishna, because in the entire conversation, Krishna is someone who's actually has been guided. He's the guiding force for all the Pandavas. What was his role in this entire journey? Sundar? Like apart from Jnana Bodhane and giving teaching Bhagavad Gita, that is the
So
epitome.
in short, Santosh, if I might to say what is role of Krishna in the war or in Mahabharata, I would say Mahabharata is equal to Krishna and Krishna is equal to Mahabharata. So there is no part of Mahabharata where Lord Krishna, in his own form and in the form of Sri Vedavyasa, Sri Parashurama, actually does not influence what happens in the war. He is a creator, so he is the one who is the central character in all this. So I'm afraid that we are really short of time for this elaborate answer. But suffice it to say that it is the complete act of Mahabharata is completely orchestrated by Lord Krishna. He is the one who establishes what is dharma, which is nothing but the symbolism that we use for the Pandavas themselves and the Kauravas, who are symbolic of all the evil that is there. He is the one who comes in. Yeah, he's that way. He's as a relative, he's equidistant from both of them. He clearly shows a bias. So is Krishna biased? Extremely biased. He's biased towards dharma. He's not biased towards Pandavas. Since Pandavas were people who upheld the dharma, he was always on their side. Because otherwise, everybody had equal access to him. Imagine who got the Vishwarupa Darshana. Arjuna got it. But didn't all the Kauravas also get the Vishwarupa Darshana when he went there as a messenger of peace? They got it. They had the access. Duryodhana and Arjuna both went to Krishna asking him for their help. What did Arjuna choose? Krishna. And what did Duryodhana choose? His army. So this kind of a choice is between dharma and adharma actually decided on which side Krishna will be. Krishna is considered a Pandava Pakshapati. That means he was biased. Of course, he is biased. How can you say that my God, the judge is very biased toward justice. The justice, the judge is supposed to be biased against the justice, with the justice, right? He is the one who is supposed to be telling what is dharma and uphold it at all times. So Krishna is the architect, he is the cause, and he is the real energy behind the entire Mahabharata. I think for this workshop, I think that's all we can cover on Lord Krishna. So I think the moral of the story clearly is think long term before acting, because anything that we do, we should not be short sighted. Today it may look like it might give us pleasure, but tomorrow it's going to come back and bite us. If you postpone doing something, right, immediately after this workshop, all the men should go and perform Sandhya Vandana, whoever is eligible. Other people who are not eligible may do other things which are important, like reciting a stotra or getting ready for next week. What happens if you don't do that today? Today, yes, you may get a little more time. You may say, okay, I'm feeling lazy. You might get some leisure, but tomorrow morning it's going to impact you. So Mahabharata is full of these stories which says that we have to think long term, which is what the Pandavas did. They had to undergo a lot of difficulties in the short term, but ultimately, over a period of time, whatever they did became the dharma. And imagine today's world, had Pandavas not been there, Duryodhana would have run amok, everywhere. And we find Duryodhanas everywhere in different forms because he is none other than Kali himself. So,
Right.
yeah.
Moving on, Sundar, we all have this question: did really Mahabharata take place? Because it's a constant I mean, a constant confusion between is it an epic or a history? Do we have any really real proofs? Did it really happen? Can you just talk about it?
Sure. So, clearly Mahabharata is called Itihasa. It is not mythology. The word mythology, unfortunately, has come to us from the West, where they may we don't know whether those are fables, stories, or constructs just to prove that there is there is something called righteousness in the world. That's why they probably call it mythology. Mythology, by definition, means myth. That means something that didn't exist. It's just a constructed story. But Mahabharata and Ramayana are not stories, they are not cock and bulls fables that have been just created out of the blue. So, how do we prove that? How do we prove that Mahabharata actually happened today? What is the proof? So, Santosh, you have come up with a very interesting way of answering this question, where here you are now going to conduct. So, Santosh is now going to conduct a quiz. What he's going to do is going to show you some visuals, and you have to guess which those visuals are. Those visuals are photographs taken in recent times about certain things which happened during the Mahabharata time, right? So some of you might have visited these places, in which case you will get it easily. But Santosh has a few googlies for you in these pictures. So over to you, Santosh. uh, Please take over from here.
Right, Sundar. Right. So while some of these pictures might be a little tough to sort of crack, but we request all the viewers to sort of put a little bit of effort and then let us know what are these pictures, where are these pictures from. So these pictures would definitely touch upon some of the proofs that we were thinking of, or we were trying to sort of deep dive. So the first picture uh, that you can see on the screen, uh, could someone could have guess what picture is this? So we have numbered this so that you can also look at other pictures as well and then plan. I request all the viewers to take up the picture one, guess it, and put down your answers in the comment section.
So, what is picture number one, if we may ask? Can anybody guess what is this picture? Anyone? The picture's got something to do with the Mahabharata. That's a clue, of course. It's a tough one, I must say. Anyone knows what is picture one?
Someone is saying Kurukshetra.
Kurukshetra. No. So this is yeah. Over to you,
This is the
Santosh.
Prachin Hanuman Mandir in Connaught Place, New Delhi. So this is a Hanuman temple uh, of Hanuman
Yes, so
temple
this
near.
is a Hanuman temple. Yes, I'm sorry. I agree with Siri Prabha that pictures are not clear. So request you to switch it on a laptop. You might be able to see clearly. So the picture first is that it's called Prachin Hanuman Mandir, which is there in Connaught Place, right in the center of Delhi. And all of us know Delhi is the modern Indraprastha. So there is a locality even today called Indraprastha between New Delhi and Noida as you're traveling. So this is Hanuman temple believed to have been established by the Pandavas themselves. So next time you go to Delhi, please visit this place. It's a lovely temple of Lord Hanuman.
Right.
Okay,
Thanks. Yeah. Right.
yeah,
So second question, second picture. Can anyone guess?
yeah.
No one
Satyanarayana has got it right. Hanuman temple at Connaught Place. Very well done, sir. Congratulations. What about number two? Anyone? We agree this is a tough quiz.
Yeah.
It's not easy, but it's an opportunity to learn. Okay, Santosh, I think you can give the
The
answers.
second question. Sorry, the answer to the second picture is Jyotisar, Kurukshetra, Haryana.
Yes. So Jyotisar is the place where Bhagavad Gita was recited. Today, of course, there's a big banyan tree which existed since the Mahabharata. That's the legend. And now, of course, there is a very nice temple which has been printed, and there's a beautiful place where they've inscribed the entire Bhagavad Gita. But that very spot in Kurukshetra is something which is the place where the Bhagavad Gita Upadesha happened. So that's answer to picture number two.
Yeah. So I think picture three is a little easy. I guess. I think lot of people would have visited. Uh, can anyone guess? Right. Any guesses? So I'll tell it. I'll tell it out. So the answer to the third picture is Vrindavan, Uttar Pradesh. So I think could be the view as well. But yes, it is Vrindavan. It is situated in Uttar Pradesh. So Satyana says Kurukshetra Sarovar. No, but it's Vrindavan. So the fourth question, sorry, the fourth picture. Can anyone guess? It looks like a cave. It looks like tunnel. Um, so any guesses for the fourth picture? Right. So the fourth picture is the tunnel. It actually leads from Lakshagraha. So it was actually excavated by the Archaeological Society of India in recent times.
Yeah, so this is the tunnel which moved the Pandavas away from the Lakshagraha. All of us know that there was a tunnel which was built and it went down, and that has been excavated recently. And the Archaeological Society of India has approved the excavation, and they found that there is actually a very massive tunnel which moved from some place going all the way below the Ganga and emerging at some other place. This is believed. This exactly matches the description of the tunnel which was built after the Lakshagraha. So this exists even today. Imagine 5,000 years, nothing has survived, but these structures survive even today. So that's the picture number four.
Right. So then moving on. So the next, the fifth picture. So any guesses for the fifth picture? So right. So the fifth picture is the Hastinapur fort, which is in Hastinapur, which is in Haryana. Right. So this is one of the. So, no, I no. Murli is this picture five Purana Kula fort. No, that is the Hastinapura. Right. Cool. So moving on. I think sixth picture. I think a lot of people can actually sixth picture. Sorry, the sixth picture. I think a lot of people can guess it. I feel it's an easy uh, question. I think a lot of uh, people would have visited this temple. Right. So Satyanarayana says Udupi, which is right. Any exact Udupi? Yeah, yeah. So Pragati Achar says Udupi, which is right, which is the Ananteshwara temple. Interestingly, if you look at the way the stone structures, these are so properly aligned. It is said that it has been built by Bhimasena and Arjuna. Yeah. So sixth is Ananteshwara. Right. So what can you guess the seventh picture? So seventh picture looks it is like a Pranadevaru's idol. So but which Pranadevaru? Any location that you know of? Right. So the seventh picture is a Hanuman temple, which is in Mulabagal. So it is said that it is actually been installed by uh, no it Brahmanyapura. No, it's not Brahmanyapura. It is Mulabagal. It is actually the seventh picture was installed by none other than Arjuna, if I'm right. Right, Sundar?
Yes, absolutely. If you've been to Mulabagal, there is a Hanuman temple within the town, not on the bypass. Because if people are going from Bangalore to Tirupati, you will find Shripata Raja Vrindavana, which is on the outskirts on the bypass. But you have to enter the Mulabagal town, and there is a beautiful temple of Lord Hanuman, which is what you see here. It has been established by Arjuna. So that's picture seven.
Yeah. So eighth picture, I know it is a little difficult by just looking at the picture. So eighth picture, any guesses? Right. So the eighth picture is Shri Draupadi Koop, which is in Kurukshetra, Haryana. Uh, Chanda Pushkarani in Shri Ram. No, it's not the right one. So it is the Draupadi Koop.
Yeah, Ravi Raj has got it's a good guess. Though the answer is wrong, I think it resembles the Chandrika, Chandra Pushkarni in Srirangam. This is a well. What you see in picture number 8 is a well where Draupadi is supposed to have washed her hair, which is stained by the blood of Dushasana. So this is called Draupadi Koop, which is there in Kurukshetra, which is in current day Haryana. Okay. So that's picture 8. So, Santosh, in the interest of time, we can move a little quickly.
Yeah. So any guesses on picture 9? Which are like most of us would have visited this place. So basically, ninth picture is Mathura, which is where Krishna was actually born.
Shri Krishna
So,
Janmasthan in Mathura. Yes.
yeah. So, 10th question, and can anyone, 10th picture, sorry, and can anyone guesses? Yeah. So, basically, it was a Pandava Janmasthan, which is near in Badrinath, Uttarakhand.
Yes.
Yeah. So, the 10th picture is where all the Pandavas were born, which is in Badrinath. So, 11th is any guesses for the 11th picture?
Yes, Santosh, Sudhindra Murthy has given the right
Mythical.
answer.
Yeah, correct, correct.
Wonderful, sir. Congratulations. Very well done. It's not easy to guess that because it looks very common. So it's a beam pull. So between two, mountain ranges, the river is flowing, and there's no way to cross it. So Bhima just picked up this whole stone and just kept it as a pull. If you as a pull in Hindi, as we know, means a bridge. If you see this, even today it's very clear it's an addendum. It doesn't flow out of any of the two mountains. So somebody brought it from somewhere and it kept it here. There's an army post today there in Bhimpul, and the army has put up a board saying that this is something which was done by Bhima. So every day they go and pray there. There's a small temple also erected of Bhima. So this is what the Pandavas used to cross the river. So very rare picture. So if you visit Badrinath, please do ensure that you visit these places and look at it and breathe, uh, think about the story itself. It's a good time to remember what happened over there. So that's picture number 11.
So, picture 12, 13, and 14, you can like sort of plan, think, and let us know the answers. So, picture 12, any guesses? These are the last three pictures to be guessed. Right. So, this is called Abhimanyu Ka Tila, is in Kurukshetra, Haryana.
So this is called the Abhimanyu Ka Tila. Tila means hillock or a mound. This is where the unfortunate incident of Abhimanyu getting killed happened, and that one incident changed the pace of the war because under it happened under the aegis of of Dronacharya, which adds to the fact that people like Dronacharya, Ashwathama, and Karna participated in the killing of a teenage boy who was unarmed. The rules were flouted because one person can fight only one person at a time, and such an illustrious prince was put to death in that place. So it is a harsh reminder um, of the grave injustice that Kauravas did. At the same time, it reminds us of also the place where somebody who is as smart and as brave as Abhimanyu would even enter the Chakravyuha was so difficult, but he had the valor of his father and he entered the Chakravyuha boldly. Of course, to die later, but he died for a just cause. And that one death of his actually spurred the Pandavas so much that after that they never looked back, and the whole course of the war changed from then on. So that's picture number 12.
Yeah. So, any guesses for 13 and 14? So, uh, Murali actually
Yes,
got it right. Murali Narayan says Bhishma Kundam for 14, picture
yes.
14, which is right. It is again in Kurukshetra, Haryana. And
So yeah, so the picture number 14 is the place where Arjuna actually shot an arrow and brought the water out of the well, out of the groundwater, and actually gave it to Bhishma when he was on the bed of arrows. So this is that place from where the water emerged. And 13 is the temple, Bhishma temple, which has been built as a tribute to Bhishmacharya, about whom we have just spoken, and very rightly so. All this are in the Kurukshetra area itself. So if you visit Kurukshetra, you need to these are only some pictures we have. There are lots of other pictures, lot of other places that you should visit. So now it has become a tour that's organized from Delhi, where people visit all these places. So please do visit these places when you get time, and do take a lot of pictures and send it to us as well, so that we can use it for future reference. And do take your children along, because you have the ability to tell them the story at that very spot where it happened, which has got very special significance.
Right.
So thank you, Santosh, for that quiz. So I know the quiz was tough, but I think the idea was to educate people so that they know that Mahabharata really happened, because these places are available even today. And look at these list of all these places, Santosh. Even today, Badrinath, Haridwar, Rishikesh, Indraprastha. Indraprastha is unique to Mahabharata, right? And that is the modern day New Delhi. Kurukshetra, as we know, is a very big district in Haryana. Mathura and Vrindavana are part of Uttar Pradesh. All of us, I'm sure, have visited it. If you have not visited, please do visit it. Dwarika, I think, is the most interesting case of all. Today even Dwaraka exists, and it's an under ocean undersea city. The whole city went underwater. We all know that. This has been excavated by the United Nations, and they have proven that indeed there was a massive city which has now got underwater, and it exists exactly. Now, what is important, look at Pragjotishpur. It is the modern day Guwahati, right? Probably, if you are coming out of the airport, I came out of the Goa airport in the taxi. The first thing you will see is a massive board saying Pragjotishpur police station. So even now it's called Pragjotishpur. So one can look around and say, when I was discussing with our volunteers about these things, one of them asked me, Prithvi in fact asked me, saying, why don't it could have happened that all these names were taken in by somebody and a story made all around. Just the name does not prove that these cities actually existed. That is not true, because it is not just the names, the relative distances, the events which happened are all consistent, not just in Mahabharata, which is itself a big thing, because Mahabharata is 1 lakh shlokas. The story pans out almost 10 to 12 generations. Maintaining that consistency is very important. If this was a cooked up story, the consistency would have gone away. Plus, remember one more thing, Santosh. Mahabharata story appears in Bhagavata, appears in Ramayana, Harivamsha, Padma Purana, and so many other Puranas. So, if one tampers with one part of it, he will have to rig everything else. He has to rig the geography of the place. He has to rig the history of the place, which is simply impossible to do. So, yes, we may not find, when you go to Kurukshetra, many people expect that the remnants of the war, the chariot, the killed horses, and the weapons are all found. That is not true, because this has happened 5,000 years ago. That happened in Dwapara. Now we are in Kali Yuga. The Yuga itself has changed. But just the fact that these cities exist even today, exactly the way they are mentioned up to the last meter of distances in the geography, it is very, very clear that these existed. And Mahabharata, therefore, is not um, a cock and bull story, but a itihasa or history.
So, in summary, Sundar, if you could like,
Yeah, I'll give a very quick summary. I think, the important thing. So, why did we conduct this workshop? Because it's not to answer 5 questions. Obviously, people have more than 5 questions. And every day we get more questions as we keep reading Mahabharata, right? For example, who was Ekalavya? Why did he get killed? The manner that we did. Was there a caste system, etc.? So, therefore, the Mahabharata, we have to understand, is a spiritual text, not a story of two cousins who were fighting for some property. The way some people describe Mahabharata, it almost sounds like a property dispute about some ancestral property. No, that's not why it is. The Mahabharata war is the crux of Mahabharata, no doubt about it. But it's not only about that. There's a huge build-up of dharma and adharma before this war happened. and it plays out in the war and what happens after the war. It is history. It is not a figment of someone's imagination, right? And very importantly for us, one may say, okay, all this may be true, but what do we have to learn? Each event and character has a lesson for us, which we can learn from. There was a question, Santosh, somebody asked, saying that why did Karna, who is such a dear friend of Duryodhana, not advise him to be on the path of Dharma? He did. Karna is the incarnation of Lord Surya, such a highly placed, God himself. But why does he, even when he says it, Duryodhana is not a person who will listen. That's the thing. That Duryodhana has got access to the same knowledge as the Pandavas, but just his hatred and his jealousy towards the Rama, towards the Pandavas, actually destroyed his sense of judgment, right? So every character in Mahabharata has a lesson for us. There is a lesson from Kunti, there is a lesson from Bhishma, there is a lesson from Vidura, there is lots of lessons to be learned from Pandavas. There is a lesson to be learned from Draupadi. There is a lesson to be learned from, of course, Lord Krishna, who is the epitome of knowledge. So when we read the Mahabharata, we should read it from, okay, what will I get by reading it today? How can I apply those principles in my life today, in my work tomorrow, in my college life day after tomorrow, or as a father, or as a mother, as a son? What are the rules and what are the principles I can imbibe myself? And what is very important is we should study the Mahabharata from authentic sources. This is very important. Watching television serials is great, it's great entertainment, but they should not be taken as the last word of what Mahabharata is. Unfortunately, they are running, it's an entertainment program. So while a great attempt has been made, I must commend all those people who have made that effort to bring out these things. Otherwise, people probably would have forgotten Mahabharata. And bringing Mahabharata center stage, right, was very, very important. Bringing Ramayana center stage was very important, right? Um, the very fact. So why don't we just treat them as stories? The answer is everybody knows the story of Mahabharata, right? Yet it provides this intrigue. Every time, every stage that we read about Mahabharata, we all know it. But reading it again and again and again, every time one reads it, it seems to give you a different meaning. And that's the magic of the creator, Lord Vedavyasa himself. Only he could have created something which has been read, debated, discussed for 5,000 years, yet it provides something which is of interest to people. No matter how interesting a story, it has got a lifetime. But Mahabharata and Ramayana are called eternal because of the fact that they create that curiosity again and again. So these five intriguing questions were not the first, nor will they be the last. I'm sure our viewers have more questions that they want to ask, which they can send it to us subsequently, and we will answer it to the in an email, or we will conduct a separate program again on this topic.
Right. Sundar, if you could also highlight some of the sources for our readers, it'd be great.
Yes, I think one thing I would strongly recommend these three, but there are many more. Mahabharata has been translated into Kannada and by Padimar Mutt. 37 volumes of this are available today. I know it's a voluminous work, but then if one wants to read the essence of Mahabharata, which is 100,000 shlokas, then one will have to make the effort. I know it's going to take a long time, but it's worth the effort. Let us invest the time. 5 to 6 years, maybe it takes, but yes, let's invest that time to learn this. This is available on Amazon. It's available in all the prominent bookstores. One can order it. Mahabharata Tatpanirnaya, again a magnum opus of Sri Madhvacharya, has been translated by Agrahar Narayana Tantrigalu in 2 volumes, and most recently by Sri Prabhanjanacharya, our Guru. He has translated that into 8 volumes. Beautiful volumes which bring the entire essence of all the Sarvamula Granthas. This is available now. It has just got released. So before it becomes out of print, I would request all our viewers to buy this and then start reading it. Because Mahabharata Tatparanya is not about just Mahabharata, it's about Mahabharata, it's about Ramayana, It's about our entire Shastra's structure is covered in the topic of Mahabharata Tatparyanaya. Madhvacharya's biggest and longest work with 5,000 plus shlokas is available. So I would definitely urge everyone to view this. Plus, there are many series of lectures rendered by great scholars on this topic. Right now, as we speak, Shivarudradimat Swamiji is rendering the Bhishma Parva and other Parvas. Please go to YouTube, watch these episodes, because reading it is one part. If you can't read for whatever reason, you can read them. You can at least listen to the lectures. And these are typically done in Parvas, different Parvas. So make this a point, block it on your calendar every day, 7 to 8. The entire family sits and, like you used to watch Mahabharata, you listen to Mahabharata Tatparyanaya. One thing is very sure about Mahabharata, there is no dull moment. However, well you know the story, it intrigues you, it interests you every single day.
Right. Sundar, Pragati Acha is asking, is there any English translation for this?
Yes, yes. It is available. Mahabharata Tatparya translated in English is available. It is printed by Palimar Mutt again. It is available. Yes. Pragati, you can check on in the Palimar Mutt library and bookstall in Udupi. They have a website as well. You can order and they will ship it to wherever you are, or you can go and procure it. It's available there. I'm very sure it's available in the bookstores other places also.
Right. Cool. So moving on. So this is how our calendar looks like. So we've completed about four workshops. The fifth workshop, which will be on a similar format, but again, like we'll be taking up five intriguing questions about Mahabharata and why it's so important to know Mahabharata in its right spirit and a true story. 7th August we'll be talking 7th, 14th August and 21st August, which is the series. So first we'll be talking about Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga, and then followed by the series which is Karma, Jnana and Bhakti Yoga, which is from the point of view of Raghavendra Swamiji on Bhagavad Gita. Moving on, so there'll be an open house workshop where uh, I mean, uh, viewers can ask any questions. Like it's an open house. We're trying to format this entire session in a very interesting formats wherein uh, people can join us, ask their questions, and get those answers. Trying to make it as interesting as possible. Followed by Upanishad series, then Sadhana, which is the path and milestone in the spiritual journey. How do we set our goals? How should be our spiritual journey, and so on and so forth will be discussed. Learning the Madhva Shastra, like we had discussed previously, again we're conducting another workshop on how to learn. So how do we structure which granthas to be taken in the elementary stage? How do we sort of move ahead, build our journey in learning Madhva Shastras? And Shastras, like, but can you prove it? So basically, it's epistemology, which is a system of proof in the Indian philosophy. How do we learn the Shastras? That will be discussed in Feb 22, then followed by Glories of Vishnu Sahasranama. So we had a workshop on Stotra itself, so where we had discussed about Vishnu Sahasranama, but since it's such a stotra which is called as a Stotra Raja, so and hence we'll be again picking up Vishnu Sahasranama, speaking about the glories of Vishnu Sahasranama. And then lives of works of different Yathigalu. One of the popular Yathis of Madhya philosophy, Vadirajaru, Jayatirtharu, Vyasarajaru, will be discussed in April, May, and June. So, any questions, please feel to drop in. So, right now, I'll have a couple of more slides to cover. Meanwhile, if you have any questions, please drop in your questions. We'll be happy to pick it up. So the way forward, as we told, like we have three formats: the online webinars that we conduct every Sunday once in a month, which will be in R or on R plus kind of a formats where we'll be discussing these like many topics that we had scheduled, followed by a 10 to 12 minute kind of a video where we'll be picking up smaller topics. Topics meaning like topics which we could render in just 10 to 12 minutes, which will be effective to sort of consume. Then even more shorter videos, which is 3 to 5 minutes video, which will be uploading on different social media handles. Please do sort of watch out and consume these videos. So we'll be also touching upon like other series like Dvaita series, Bhagavad Gita series that we have planned, that we have already planned and sort of included in our table. Then Upanishad series, Mahabharata series, and meditation series. Meditation series we had done an offline series. Again, we'll be planning to do a meditation series online, and request to all participants. So if you have any topics, questions, like if you have any comments, if you have any other suggestions that you have for us, please do write into us, which is madhvacharya numerical 4youth at gmail.com. And if someone wishes to be a volunteer with us, please do write into us on this email ID. We'll be happy to sort of write in back to you. And then you can also like sort of follow us, comment, like, share our content on different social media handles on YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter. The handle is Madhvacharya for Youth. And also, especially as I keep requesting all the viewers to subscribe our YouTube channel. We have loads of content that has been thoughtfully crafted content that has been put up in on the YouTube channel. Please do consume these and then share. So next workshop, which is on Ramayana, which is 5 intriguing questions about Mahabharata. We'll try and bring in some of the interesting questions about Ramayana and try to deep dive into those questions. So please block your calendar for which is on July 31st on Sunday from 3:30 to 4.
Yeah, one question which is coming is Santosh, is Kali Yuga all about struggles and adharma? Does any text mention about Kalki avatar out of context? No, so it's not out of context because Mahabharata ends with the start of the Kali Yuga. So Kali Yuga is not all about adharma and all of that. It is a great yuga. It is a yuga which is lends itself a lot to sadhana because everything is considered to be difficult in Kali Yuga because the ruler is Kali himself. So he makes it difficult for everyone to achieve their dharmic goals. But having said that, because it's a tough time, it's like a tough question paper. If it's an easy paper, the cutoff is 50 out of 100. But if it's a tough question paper, the cutoff is 25 out of 100. So therefore, Kali Yuga is a tough year. So therefore, if all the sadhana that we do in this particular yuga it becomes that much more easier. So yes, there are a lot of things which are ordained as our duties in other yugas, but in this yuga we don't have to perform, for example, such long yagnas and homas and recitation of the Vedas, etc. to that extent. Here, Harinama Smarane, studying the scriptures to the best of our ability and staying righteous, following the path of Dharma against all these odds itself gives us the results that we should be looking at it. So one should look at Kali Yuga as a great opportunity to do some sadhana and then move on. As such, Kalki Avatar is mentioned. Yes, Bhagavata mentioned Kalki Avatar. Other Puranas also mention the Kalki Avatar. It is clearly mentioned as to how Kalki is when he is going to come. So there is a godman who was masquerading a few decades back, saying that he is himself the incarnation of Kalki, not knowing that Kalki himself does not is not born yet. Kalki avatar cannot happen till the end of Kali Yuga, and we are in the first quarter. Kali Yuga Prathama Pade we say. So we are still in the first quarter of the Kali Yuga. So we got a very long way to go before Kali Yuga ends, and that is when Kalki avatar will happen. So he is not yet born as such. Um, if Yudhishthira ruled all over the earth, does it mean so Mahabharata for that it doesn't have to be an integrated landmass because clearly Mahabharata expands the places at that time. It was not one integrated landmass, but it had several other kingdoms over which Yudhishthira ruled as well. So he was a Chakravarti. So he ruled the entire earth. So today we don't have that post called Chakravarti in the Kali Yuga as such. So that is the answer. Should we learn Guru Bhakti from Ekalavya? Doubt being he has acted against Krishna. No. So the lesson to be learned from Ekalavya is not to oppose Krishna. because that's the main lesson that we and we'll talk about the story of Ekalavya in one of our future workshops. The fact is, whenever somebody wants to pursue knowledge, he should do it with all the righteousness, with all the truth, with all the honesty. Imagine you go into a class with a false caste certificate today. You lose eligibility in order to actually pursue that education course today if it is proven that you have used the wrong credentials. So therefore it's very important that when you're pursuing the pursuing education, you should tell the truth, which is what Ekalavya did not do, and therefore had to bear the consequences. So the lesson that we have to learn from Ekalavya is not to be like Ekalavya. The lesson to be learned from Duryodhana is his determination. But unfortunately, he used it in the wrong way. If somebody uses it in the right way, he can achieve success in the way he wants. So that's what I said. Every character in the Mahabharata has got a lesson for us. So um,
Like last
I'm sorry.
question, like with all the remaining 97 Rujus incarnated in Madhya Saint after Vajrajaru.
No, this is an out of context question. I don't understand what is the relevance with all the remaining 897. Sorry, I don't get the question itself. So maybe Pragati, if you could
You
write to
can
us on
chat
our
to us.
email, we could understand this better about what this is. Yeah. So I think we've answered most of the questions, Santosh. I know there will be all many more. Um, is
It's been
Draupadi
interesting.
Vedavati Ramayana and Padmavati? No, 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 no. Draupadi is not Vedavati in Ramayana. Vedavati was somebody who appears in Ramayana in a different context. Here, Draupadi is Bharati Devi, so she can't be marrying Lord Rama or Lord Srinivasa. Yeah. Okay. So that's
Right.
it, Santosh. I think we've answered most of the questions. Thanks to everyone to have joined here, and back to you, Santosh.
Thanks, Sundar, for it's an insightful session. So I request all the viewers to drop in your questions even after the session ends, or you can also mail it to us. We will pick up these questions and answer to them as quickly as possible. So thanks MFI team and thanks all the viewers having joined and making this an interesting session. And special thanks to Prithvi and Sundar for making the session very fruitful. Thanks, Sundar, once again, and we'll be shortly be back in our next session, which is on July 31st. Until then, thanks and namaskaras to all.
Namaskar. Thank you.